move on to our first keynote speech. Thank you again, Nikos. Our keynote speech will be on mapping tech-facilitated gender-based violence in the digital age by Silvia Semenzin, who is an Italian digital sociologist and feminist advocate working on tech-facilitated gender-based violence and platform governance. She's currently a senior researcher at AI Forensics, a European NGO focused on algorithm auditing and platform accountability. So welcome, Silvia, and we're excited to hear from you now.
Thank you very much, Cordelia. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me. So I'm gonna share my slides. Please just let me know if you can visualize them properly. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So in my keynote this morning, I would like to provide an overview, also building on what Nicolas was already putting forward regarding domestic violence, to have a general overview of how technology-facilitated gender-based violence today is growing and expanding and is affecting lives of women worldwide. Before delving into all the forms and the types of gender-based violence facilitated by the technology that we have today, I think it is important to provide a definition and also some data, because that gives an overview again of how many different dimensions this technology-facilitated gender-based violence can take. So according to UN Women, technology-facilitated gender-based violence is defined as any act committed or amplified through digital tools or technologies that causes physical, sexual, psychological, social, political, or economical harm to women and girls because of their gender. This means that technology-facilitated gender-based violence is not only the ones that occurs online, but it can also occur offline through digital means. So it was already mentioned how Internet of Things can be used, for example, to surveil women or to control them, and this is an example. So we need to really see this violence as an entanglement between different types of technology. It is also a continuum between the violence that occurs online and offline, where offline forms, already existing forms of violence, can be exacerbated. This means that violence oftentimes can start online and continue offline, or vice versa. And the ultimate goal is harming women with technology, which today is pretty easy, quick, and massive, and more worryingly, often remains unpunished. And this sense of impunity is often what allows this violence to thrive. Looking at some data, why we say this violence is gendered. 90% of victims of online sexual harassment are women and girls, according to Human Rights Watch in a research of 2019. Almost 60% of women and girls worldwide have experienced some forms of harassment on social media, according to research by UNESCO, more recently published in 2023. Then we have some research from the Council of Europe of 2018, which is a bit more outdated, and possibly this data could be higher, because this research was looking at public women, so women with a public voice, for example, politicians, journalists, or activists, where almost half of them in Europe had received death threats, threats of rape, or threats of beating. They were target of online sexist attacks on social network, or received comments on their bodies, unsolicited pictures, and in general insults and attacks based on their gender. In 2023, according to Amnesty International Italia, incidents of technology-facilitated gender-based violence were tripled. This is an interesting data, in my opinion, because it also shows how in a social context and political context like Italy, where there was also the arrival of a far-right government, that allowed also the violence to thrive and triple instead of decreasing, although there were also a law that theoretically was punishing online violence, and especially the non-consensual sharing of intimate images, and that was not a deterrent, according to this data for perpetrators. The most recent data, also from Amnesty International, says that 73% of the so-called Gen Z social media users had witnessed misogynistic content online, with half of it encounter it on a weekly basis. Tomorrow there will be Debbie Ging also speaking about how online misogyny is growing online. I will not delve completely into it, but it's true that we need to acknowledge that there is a growing and alarming rate of online misogyny and forms of technology-facilitated gender-based violence that are going together with the arrival of the global alt-right. And this is not a casualty. Obviously, it is absolutely a political strategy that still uses gender realm as a way to exert control and power. So this is a proposal of categorization of the many types and forms of gender-based violence that exist online and through technology. I want to mention that this is not an exhaustive list. It's an attempt to categorize many of the different types of violence that I encountered during my research or during my support to survivors and during the studies. But violence is growing, and together with the arrival of new technologies, for example, AI and generative AI, these violences are just growing, in the sense that, unfortunately, we are looking at technology today always from the perspective of like mitigating the risks instead of preventing the risk. And this is because technology is still a male-dominated field where feminist approaches are not taken into consideration. So it means we think how to solve the problems when they are already happening, instead of preventing them when we design the technology. That said, this categorization is based on the type of behavior that can occur online. Again, many of this categorization might overlap. And more importantly, many of these violence do occur together. They do not occur just one at a time. Oftentimes, they also happen on a continuum. So they can also entangle in different ways. And something that I didn't put on the slide, but it's also important to highlight, is that this violence is also intersectional, in the sense that victims are 90% women. But at the same time, if they are racialized women or women with disabilities or LGBTQ women, their violence might be expanded. So here is the categorization. On the one hand, we find hateful communication, so-called, and harassment, so different forms of harassment. We go from the most normalized types of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, which is, for example, misogynistic hate speech and threats. Then many people still think that it's just a normal consequence of staying online, and many detractors of gender-based violence say that everyone receives violence in the same way online, and this is absolutely not true. There is, of course, a name for this violence. There is a nature, and this nature is, for and foremost, gendered. So women are still the first target of the internet. So hate speech and threats are just the basis of the pyramid of violence. Going on, we find also the so-called online harassment, which includes, for example, the so-called also cyber flashing that you can also see inside image-based sexual abuse. So that's how I say that sometimes they also entangle, but it can also include, sending unsolicited messages, insisting messages, and then also sending pictures, unsolicited pictures. So you know that this type of behavior is already a crime in some states, not all of them, but in many places it is already recognized as a crime. Then we have other not normalized types of violence, for example, occurring on social media. For example, the so-called gender trolling, which happens normally to women who speak out as feminists, and they receive coordinated, often, violence and campaigns against them using defamation and using gender trolling to stress them and to make them shut up. Basically, that's the main goal. And then I put also in this category the so-called digital rape. I will take it further on a case study that I will comment, which includes taking pictures of women and sharing them online without their consent, and then collectively commenting on them and doing the so-called tributes, which is something that happened very recently in Italy, and I will come back in a moment to comment on this. Then going faster, image-based sexual abuse. This is the most known form of image-based sexual abuse is the non-consensual dissemination of intimate content online. It can include videos, it can include pictures, it can also include audios and text, but normally it includes images and videos. And more recently, it has also become worsened in thanks to generative AI. So vulgarly, this is called deepfake porn. I don't like this term because it's restating the idea that this content is pornographic, and it's not. It's better to speak of AI manipulated sexual content, but it's ultimately referring to alterated pictures with AI that allow today to put the face of an ordinary woman on a video, porn video, or nudify her with AI tools. And this has grown more than 500% in the past 3 years. So imagine how we're using technology for good today. Then they already mentioned cyber flashing. And then there is also a category of image-based sexual abuse, which is creep shots, which includes upskirting pictures, downblousing pictures. So that's taking pictures of parts of the body of women and then sharing them online. This is also absolutely recognized as an abuse. Then we turn to surveillance, monitoring, and control. So we have cyber stalking, so forms of already existing violence that reinforce online, such as stalking. We have hacking, so the stealing of information without consent. GPS and location tracking, unauthorized access to smart home and Internet of Things devices. This can also happen not just to control, but also to torture their victim, like, for example, changing the hate wave at home or changing music and this type of things. And then the use of malwares or spywares on mobile phones or computer to, again, cyberstalk. Then we have identity abuse. One of them is doxing, so it's the release and sharing of personal information without consent, name, number of phone, addresses, social media, and this type of things. Again, this is the most typical violence that occurs, for example, together with image-based sexual abuse. Perpetrators often like to know also where their victim are from, where they can find them, and where they can send, for example, messages, or pylons and unsolicited pictures. So this is an example for you to see how this can occur, right, in a continuum. Online impersonation, this includes opening pages or social media pages or website in the name of somebody else with their pictures and, again, with their information. And then online defamation, disinformation campaigns that largely attains feminist activists and politicians. And then there is also a categorization for economic abuse, where I've placed, sextortion, which is, the threat of sharing pictures, intimate pictures of somebody and asking money for not doing that. Selling third parties non-consensual intimate content, which also includes OnlyFans contents. This is also very widespread on the web and recognized as a violence also for people who sell their own sexual content, and then sexual solicitation, which opens up to other forms of abuse that are not simply gender-based violence, are more connected to sexual exploitation. So you can find more descriptions of all these type of firms also in the work of the European Institute of Gender Equality. But I hope this gives already an idea of how complicated then it is also to regulate and attain this type of behavior online. Who does the violence impact? Well, we have already seen it. We know it's women. If we turn to image-based sexual abuse more specifically, survivors are 90% women again, 68% between 18 and 30 years old, but we know many victims are underage, and we still lack the data, but it is a very high number. There is also this idea that the rest of the 10%, which is not included in the 90% of victims, is men, and their perpetrators are women. But this is not the case. Of course, that exists, but the percentage is way less than 10%. I would say it could be around 2%, maybe. The rest seems to be men from the LGBT community, more specifically, not just men, also transgender people and gender diverse people, but also gay men, where the perpetrators are still men. So this is an interesting data because it tells us that perpetrators are predominantly men in this type of violence. And of course, this resonates with a problem of culture, patriarchal and misogynistic culture rooted in traditional power structures, where we find the persistence of hegemonic masculinity practices. These practices are rooted also in homosocial context, the persistence of gender stereotypes and double standards related to the regulation of feminine sexuality and freedom. And then, as I was saying at the beginning, the global anti-feminist backlash, which today positions misogyny as a political strategy, and that is contributing to the intensification of technology-facilitated gender-based violence. As I was saying, the continuum is not just about the online and the offline, but in line with other forms of gender-based violence, also tech-facilitated abuse aims to control, intimidate, silence, ridicule, harm, and exclude women from the public sphere. Yeah? Is somebody wanted to say something? No. Okay.
I'm not sure if that was maybe a
sorry.
technical error. Yeah, just continue.
Okay, sorry. Good. So this means that this is a new dimension of gender-based violence, but it's nothing new in terms of the gender abuse that women and gender diverse people experience in their life. Just so you think of the consequences, especially in the context of image-based sexual abuse, and so we can restate the idea that also Niklas was putting forward, that the fact that this violence is absolutely real. 51% of image-based sexual abuse victims have considered suicide as a form of exiting the violence. So imagine the stress and the anxiety and depression that you can experience just because somebody has seen your pictures online. Not somebody, many eyes, many people, and you feel you cannot stop this violence. More than 80% experience distress, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, social problems, social exclusion, and so on and so forth. And then if we also turn to feminists and women with public voices again, the result is often also self-censorship or the abandonment of social media because of the violence they receive. So this is in line again with the aim of violence. How much time do I have, Cordelia, just to regulate myself?
Yes, you've got 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, amazing, thank you. So to illustrate a little bit more what I'm speaking about, I would like to now bring you this case study. It is an Italian case study, but it can be absolutely contextualized also to other countries because Now I'm going to tell you about Telegram, but Telegram is not used just in Italy in this way, and for sharing pictures of women without their consent, to organize the technology-facilitated gender-based violence campaign. Scandals like the one that I will now illustrate to you have been found in Portugal, in Germany, in France, in Spain, in Mexico. So it is absolutely a global problem. But I've done research on the Italian case because it was closer to my knowledge. And this was published in 2020 together with my co-author Lucia Bainotti. So this was the first digital ethnography that was done on Telegram using digital methods to study image-based sexual abuse. I want to mention that this research took place in a moment in which I was also leading a campaign in Italy to ask for the criminalization of non-consensual sharing of intimate images. So this research was done to also gain data and to provide them to provide institutions with data to make them also understand how widespread the problem was and who perpetrators were, instead of always speaking of victims and the profile of the victims, also having a focus on the people who were perpetrating this violence. So we collected more than 50 public and private channels and groups on Telegram sharing image-based sexual abuse. Overall, many of these channels had more than 70,000 users, and these numbers have grown over the years. So now we have groups that are the double. And we were interested in investigating the entanglement between platform affordances, so-called platform affordances, and masculine homosexual practices. We turned to Telegram because we knew it was a preferred platform for sharing illicit or illegal content due to a sense of impunity that is still given by loose platform regulation, content moderation. And also we received at that time, I received as the leader of this campaign also several denounces by women who were victims of these groups, and especially who were the ones that told me for the first time about this website called fica.net, which is the website that appeared in all Italian media and also abroad in August this year, because it collected more than 700,000 men in this website that you can see in this slide. It's here as a forum where men basically encountered to share pictures of women. They were offering themselves to nudify pictures of women that were on social media. They were training themselves on how to hide cameras in shops, in houses, in gyms, in schools, to spy on their friends or women that they wanted to see naked. So we denounced this website back in 2019, and nothing happened. So at the time, the number of the website was around 100,000. So imagine in 7 years, it grew 7 times more. So that makes us quite angry, because you wonder what could have been done if institution had listened. But anyway, fica.net was the starting point to also collect the links on Telegram. So we chat with the admin. And we collected these links to Telegram, and then we snowballed to gain a sample. And starting from Telegram, we found many stuff. We found, for example, the so-called automatization of violence. So we found the existence already back in 2019. Imagine bots for deepfakes, bots for doxing, so automatization of doxing. And then we also found this huge archive called La Bibbia, the Bible, where all the content are stored. So they make sure, user admins make sure that if their channels are closed, the archive never get lost. So we found a general climate of masculine solidarity, in which women were commodified and objectified, not as human, but as sexual objects. And This idea of, well, negotiating their consent, thinking that in the end they were looking for it, so victim blaming them, also gave rise to a set of almost social practices where men were recognizing themselves as real men. So you can read more in our paper about this. And it was, well, really interesting for us to also see how masculinities practices were working in entanglement with also Telegram regulation and affordances. So we came out with the idea that Telegram was expanding existing forms of violence, so it was also responsible of what was happening, and we could see really how cultures were connecting with Telegram and platform governance, right? Interestingly, we don't have statistic data because it's very difficult to gain this type of data from Telegram, but from the content analysis and discourse analysis, we could understand that most of perpetrators came from a wide range of classes, ages, and geographic backgrounds in Italy. But what they shared ultimately was gender and sexual orientation. So I think, again, this tells us quite a bit regarding this phenomenon. So very quickly, because I think I have just 5 minutes left, I just want you to have a look to the current European regulation for gender-based violence online. I want to mention that the European Directive on Violence Against Women that was approved last year and marks first comprehensive legal framework to address violence against women, also recognizes 4 categories of cyber violence, as it calls there. So these 5 types of cyber violence, although the directive recognizes that this is not exhaustive, and then every member state has the possibility to amplify and extend these definitions to also include other types of cyber violence. The 4 types are non-consensual sharing of intimate images, cyber stalking, cyber harassment, and cyber incitement to hatred or violence. Here you can see the definition. Again, as a directive, this means that states will have quite a lot of room to decide how to criminalize these forms of violence, and this could be a good or a bad news, depending on the government, I guess. Yet it is a step forward in recognizing cyber violence as ad hoc violence, right? Because otherwise victims remain without guarantees and protection. I also want to really briefly mention the Digital Service Act in Europe, which is important and an important step forward, especially to what includes platform governance and platform moderation. So the emphasis it has on systemic risk management, transparency in user rights, and the obligation for the so-called very large online platforms is also obliging platforms in theory and theoretically to also provide more information regarding how they mitigate risk in the context of technology-facilitated gender-based violence. So this encompasses risk from the dissemination of illegal content to also algorithmic discrimination and, in general, negative effects on fundamental rights. What is still missing? And a lot of things. We still have a lot of stuff to do for regulation. For me, the most important things to highlight is the fact that gender perspectives and feminist approaches to technology are still lacking and still missing from this regulation. It seems that whatever has to do with the online and technology facilitated gender-based violence remains in the corner just discussed by women, so in the directive, but then when it's the time to discuss technology, that remains a male-dominated field. So Digital Service Act was made mostly without feminists and survivors, and this is a problem because today there is much work to do in this realm, and the same is valid for the AI Act, even more, which is not gender sensitive at all. We should have a broader focus on digital accountability, and this means that has access online misrepresentation and interactions, both for individuals and providers, again, in a continuum, not just one of the two. Maybe also broadening the idea of what digital intimacy means today. So understanding how this include online relationship, sexuality, and identity, and how they are shaped by digital infrastructure and commodified, sometimes even violated. And finally, digital consent. This is a concept that I think will hear again, because from activist and survivor perspectives, we should really dismantle the platform dynamics and platform current platform principles, and imagine a consent by design environment and digital environment. And this is feasible, but it would require to basically change all the current platform capitalism and how it works. And finally, just to closing remarks, when we approach the topic of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, I think we should do it from the understanding of the intersection it has, that digital rights have with sexuality. And for me, to build better futures and better environments and digital environments, we should use a sex-positive approach, because the sex-positive approach is the ones that allows us to think of rights instead of just criminalizations and risk. And it allows us to think of, better environments and new ways of fighting for our rights. So this encompasses different type of digital rights. It's right to privacy and intimacies, the right to access to correct and positive information, which ultimately look to sexual education, the freedom of sexual expression, which today is being threatened by the current changes also in global politics, and the alliance between the US government and the big tech CEOs that are today attacking sexual expression and diverse sexual expression, for example, LGBTQ or feminist. It also includes safe access to digital sex technologies and safe data storage, and this encompasses a very big list of different technologies and platforms. And finally, the right to just content moderation as well, and diverse and inclusive online visibility, which today is being censored, discriminated, and attacked. I'm gonna leave it here because I think I finished my time. Thank you so much, and I hope this was of your interest. And of course, if you have questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Silvia, for this keynote highlighting the current rise of technology-facilitated violence. And after Nikos before showed us the different definitions around tech abuse that are being currently used, he now gave us an overview of the many different forms of technology-facilitated violence, which was an extensive list. And I think that also shows the urgency of dealing with this topic at today's conference. So we have a couple of minutes left for questions. I see many questions in the chat already. A first question for you, Silvia, is based on your experience, what do you think the most important issue is to focus on with perpetrators? Programs face a dilemma that if they discuss in group about tech-facilitated abuse, they might give ideas to other men. So there's some hesitation on how to best address this.
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna take one by one the questions. Thank you for this question. Based on my experience, I'm not, I have to say, not somebody who expertly work directly with perpetrators. So yeah, I guess many people in this room will have more expertise than me. But I've been in many schools, and I've been speaking to many men, also online, doing this type of behavior, and also have many colleagues who have worked together with perpetrators directly to provide more empathy and sensitivity on the topic. I think we should work exactly on this. On first of all, the empathy that perpetrators often lack, And also, I think from a sociological perspective, and also from the fact that I'm also studying how the manosphere today is expanding to the mainstream digital environment, and tomorrow, as I was saying at the beginning, will broaden these perspectives. I think that what we are witnessing is a crisis also in masculinities to today understand how to relate heterosexually with women. So they have this idea that was teach to them over the year to basically live their heterosexuality in a very dominant way, in a way which is sometimes aggressive and makes them normalize also types of perpetration of violence against women. So for me, again, as a sociologist, I think this requires sexual education, but not just for sexuality, but in terms of emotions, social emotional education. We need to speak to young men and boys about love, about how to gain better and more positive relations with women that are not based on dominance but are based on respect. And this is a very long time job that we should do, but it's absolutely necessary if we want to change a cultural problem, because this, before being a legal or a technical problem, is a cultural problem, and it has to do with the roots of patriarchal culture that we were discussing before. So if we do it in a controlled environment, I don't think this will give necessarily ideas to how to perpetrate violence if there is somebody facilitating the conversation. Otherwise, yes, if there isn't somebody, these homosocial practices of masculinities effectively can reinforce this problem. I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for your perspective on working with perpetrators. I think we have time for only one more question, although there are many more in the chat. But as a last question, can you suggest some resources that you found useful to learn about methodologies to research technology-facilitated abuse? And how did you choose your methodology?
Mm-hmm. Well, as a digital sociology, I would say that if we want to turn to understand the technology-facilitated gender-based violence, it is important to understand digital methodologies. And those could be both quantitative and qualitative. So I often turn to qualitative research, so digital ethnography, digital interviews, digital observation of conversation online. But this has of course, a rigor. It's not just that you turn on TikTok and do research. That I wish I. Sometimes I say I do when I'm on TikTok scrolling, but actually you need more rigor of that. So one research, for example, is the well-known book from Richard Rogers of the University of Amsterdam called Digital Methods. And then also I would recommend the Caliandro and Gandini book on qualitative methodologies to study online conversation. So I have to say this, every platform requires their own methodology. So every research is different. And depending on your research question, you will have to adapt your methodology, and you can also use offline strategies to complement it. For example, I don't know, Marco Scalcelli from the University of Padua has studied WhatsApp groups among teens, among male teens, but he has done it not through studying WhatsApp, because that would be unethical and not possible, but through focus groups with kids. So there are many ways in which we can access our object of study. If you plan to do research like this and want to have a conversation, you can always drop me an email, and I will be happy to guide you. And if you need other resources more specific on, definitions or categorization of gender-based violence online, I will also be happy to share with you.
Yeah, thank you, Silvia, for sharing more background information on your research, on the research you conducted, and maybe also inspiring one or the other participant here, and also for your offer of reaching out on regarding this in the future. Unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions, so we will now proceed with the break. Thank you again, Silvia, for this very interesting keynote. We have a 15-minute break now until 11:15, and we will see you back then. for the interactive plenary that is up next. So have a nice break and see you in 15 minutes.